Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. In today's episode for you, Anthony Power and I have a jam-packed agenda. We're going to be covering August results from Riot, Hive, and CleanSpark all in today's video with the help of some of Anthony's famous tables and charts. Now before we get into that, please take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel, specifically in getting this content to other people like you who may find value. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below if you're currently holding any of these 3 companies, which is your favorite and why, and your outlook for the price of Bitcoin heading into the last few months of 2024. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Second video of the day for Anthony and I. We're coming back at you with another 3 miners producing August results that we wanted to walk through again in today's presentation, Anthony. So first up on deck, we've got Riot. Now we were just discussing before we started filming, the tail of the tape really here is the power credits increasing dramatically month over month. I wanted to walk through Riot results here, then we'll get into additional miners, but this is one we've been following extremely closely since our visit out to Corsicana, and definitely, I would say, moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. We went out to Corsicana in the second week of June, so just under 3 months ago. And when we got there, there was already sort of like buildings A1 and 2 effectively complete. A1 was operating, A2 was imminently about to operate. Buildings B1 was, the construction of B1 was in terms of complete. The shell, they were then fitting all the immersion cooling machines in there. And then B2, which is the final 100 megawatts to get their 400 megawatts completed and get to their target by the end of the year. I'm looking at the update today, and there's a lovely shot of the site as it is now. And even though it's only just over 2 months since we were there, it looks like there's loads been done. So again, really positive in terms of Riot achieving their target by the end of the year. Now, the downside to this is obviously we want to make sure that the target is energized. It's all right saying I've got 36 exahash at the end of the year if only 20 is operational. We can't, Jason's come on the podcast and stated, as all the other CEOs have done with their targets, we need to see it operational. Now, we do understand from the months of July, August, September, these hot months of the year, there's going to be curtailment, and we accept that. We've accepted that for 3 or 4 years we've been doing this in the space. When you look at the position for Riot this month, I mean, they've got 23.5 exahash installed at both their sites, so at the Rockdale and the Corsicana site. Now, their average operational hash rate for the month was only 14.5. So that's a 9 exahash difference. Now, some of that can be determined on the grounds that you have to switch off at certain times, so therefore that will affect your sites. And Corsicana is working at a spot rate for energy. So when the price rises, they will shut down, and they'll shut down until the price comes back down again. So, there's a lot more curtailment at that site than there would be maybe at the Rockdale facility. The Rockdale facility is working on a PPA agreement. 345 megawatts of power at Rockdale is on a price purchase agreement there, which basically gives them a guaranteed price. And the only time they'll shut that down is if the power spikes so high that they can actually sell power back to the grid, and they'll get rewarded in terms of power credits. And they also, as part of their 4CP program with ERCOT, they get some other demand response credits and ancillary credits for that service as well there. So that brings the power down, and that was probably a real positive part of the update. So in terms of Bitcoin mined, not as many as July. In fact, about a 13% reduction on July. Bear in mind, it's the same number of days in a month, 31 days in a month, so there's no difference in mining days. Mining doesn't stop on a Sunday for some reason. It's every day of the year. So Bitcoin mined 322 Bitcoin as opposed to 370. The hash rate in terms of plugged in hash rate actually increased by 1% to 23.5. So that's positive there. Average operational hash rate was actually lower than it was in July. So it came down by 1 exahash. So, it is down to the weather. In the update themselves, they talked about the weather and that these companies can switch off very quickly when the demand's high, when the price of energy is high, in the hot weather. Again, hot weather with machines in Texas. If you're not able to get them cool enough, you'd switch off the machines as well. Fleet efficiency for the company is 24.5, and we already said anything below the 25 is sort of like top tier. Now, as Riot start adding more hash rate, because they've got to get to 36 by the end of the year, it's less than 4 months away. So they've still got effectively, a 50% increase, over 50% increase from where they are now. But I fully expect them to deliver 36 by the end of the year. Now, 36 exahash will have a significant amount of really efficient mining machines. So that fleet efficiency will come down down towards 20, maybe even lower than 20. So that'll be good for the company, because what that'll do then is that'll tie in with the cheap energy costs they're achieving at the moment, and they're having a two-pronged attack. So the cheap energy, more efficient miners, cost of mining a Bitcoin significantly cheaper, great margins. And that's something that Riot have done over the last few years. They've always had, in terms of the self-mining business, and I talk about the self-mining business because they did have 3 businesses. They've got an engineering business, they've got a hosting business, and they've got a self-mining business. But the self-mining business, from a gross margin perspective, has been really, really good because they've managed to keep energy costs really low. So we're hoping that this year they'll maintain that. It certainly looks that their all-in power costs for the month of August came down from 3.2 cents a kilowatt hour down to 2.6. And that was because they received, 6.4 million in credits. So when I talk about the Bitcoin mine being low, if you're looking at that 6.4 million in credits received for curtailment, part of that will be selling power back to the grid. If you were to sort of swap that 6.4 million into Bitcoin equivalency, that gives you 109 Bitcoin. So when people look at the production, say 322, actually by switching off and selling power back, they were able to benefit from that. Now, the all-in power cost takes account of that, the credits they've received. So don't start thinking double counting it. I'm showing you here as an example. The production is lower. The all-in power cost does take account of the credits. So the 2.6 cents takes into account everything they received during the month of August. But 2.6 is lower than Cypher, lower than TeraWulf, lower than IREN in terms of power for that month. So that's sort of like top tier power costs there, and that's what we want to see these miners achieving: really low power, because it's today's hash price. $40 per petahash per day is not a great deal, and it's cutting through margins now, and only the most efficient and low cost energy users are going to be able to make anything that's what I call substantial enough to pay all their operating costs and give them a bit of a margin as well to cover some of those other non-cash costs that they have to bear, like they're buying machines, they're building infrastructure, that costs money. And so, we need to see a return on that as well. So overall, it's a good update. I mean, I'm really hoping that we start seeing the production increase as we come out of September. There should be no excuses because the weather will be more reasonable then. They've got a great facility at Corsicana that needs to be ramping up significantly. So that even came down in terms of operational hash rate for the month of August than it was in July. I think by about 1 exahash. So we need to see that as they get buildings B1 and B2 coming online, we need to make sure all those machines are plugged in, working, giving them proper hash rate, because we've spent now 2 years looking at production and looking at the amount of Bitcoin produced, and we've been scratching our heads on many, many months wondering. But the last 3 months, it's sort of we're starting to see a few green shoots. We want to see bigger green shoots, and that picture of the site today is an indication that from a facility point of view, they're going to tick that box. Next thing we've got to do now is get that production where it needs to be, get it producing, in terms of the likes of, some of the other miners like Hive and Bitfarms and IREN, get the most out of your facility, because some of those companies, IREN operate their biggest sites in Texas as well, so they're in the same weather conditions. So we want to see that occur too.
Yeah, we certainly do. Interesting that the power offsets. Some of these companies are selling Bitcoin, some of them are selling power, but all contributing to the overall health of the company. Now, you mentioned Hive, Anthony. You also talk about operational hash rate. Hive is on the other end of the spectrum here. They actually saw an increase month over month, up to 5.5 operational hash rate for the month of August. So that was great to see. They're in the midst of really refreshing and fine-tuning some of their older fleet to get a little bit more juice out of them. We recently had Frank and Aiden on the channel. Always a great discussion. So I would encourage you guys to go back and take a closer look at that one as well. But another company that from a lot of metrics we follow here, Anthony, looking like a value play in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about Hive, we've talked about Bitfarms. In terms of monthly performance, operational performance, they're the leading two miners, and it doesn't really change month on month. I will say though, the gap is closing. So, they are, for the last 3 years, been head and shoulders, interchanging those positions with regularity. But in 2024, you have a number of other miners that are close on the heels of Hive and Bitfarms, looking to try and get top slots. So the gap's changing. I think a lot more miners are paying more attention now to operational hash rate, and trying to, get the most out of the machines they've got, keep on top, keep the machine serviced, using the software, this firmware that can determine which machines are working more optimally or not. And companies like Hive and Bitfarms have used them types of software for a while now, so that gives them sort of like that advantage. But everybody else is catching up. The gap is definitely a lot tighter this year. Last year we sort of had I would say like a top 5 or 6, and then there was a gap between the rest. This year I'm going to say there's like a top 12. And so you've got, twice as many miners that are interchangeable in those top slots. And I think this month at the moment, looking at the results I don't think Hive or Bitfarms will get top spot in the monthly update. I'll be surprised if they're overtaken in the year to date, because the year to date is looking at the first 8 months of the year. And, you can have a good month, but, when you're looking at an average position for the first 8 months, you've got to have a good number of good months to catch them. So, but certainly this month, there's at least 1 or 2 miners that might get above them. And they're setting the standard. So they're setting the standard for everybody else to achieve. And I want to get into the August operational results next.
Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today.
So for the Hive Digital, August was a good month. 112 Bitcoin mined. It's a 3% reduction in what was mined in July, but we know that the difficulty factor has impacted production. We know that August is another, a warm month. Although, if you think about where Hive are based, they've got operations in Canada, Iceland, Sweden. these aren't sort of like always the locations that people want to go and take a summer holiday. So, you know, the temperatures in those three countries, although they'll be warmer than norm, will still be cooler and better for mining. So it obviously has helped Hive with its production in the past. But difficulty is still a factor for every miner, no matter where you're mining. So as the difficulty factor increases, it means your production's hit less. There's more machines on the network, and then everyone's getting a small piece of that Bitcoin when they've got operational hash rate on the global network. In terms of hash rate itself, you're quite right. Hive have been going through a year where they've been adding machines as and when, just buying them sort of at spot prices when the price has been right to buy. So they'll buy 1,000 machines one month, 500 maybe the next month, 1,000 the month after, and you know, this month I think they put an order in for 1,000 S21 Pro Bitcoin miners. So on top of what they've already got. So again, looking at these, you know, types of, you know, where the deal is good for Hive, they'll go out and do that. They've also done a lot of replacement of their current mining fleet. So bear in mind, these mining companies, you know, will have purchased the S19s, you know, 3 to 4 years ago when they came onto the market. You know, after 3 to 4 years, you've got to start replacing them now, because that sort of efficiency for an S19, typical S19 is about 30 joules a terahash. And when you look at what's on the market now in terms of an S21, the S21s are, you know, about 15 joules a terahash. You've got the S21 Pro, it's probably about 13.5 joules a terahash. So there are more, you know, far more efficient miners. The S21 is twice as efficient as the S19. So having that machine in there, it's using effectively like half the power cost to mine a Bitcoin as the S19 is. So they've been replacing mining machines, and all miners will have to go through that. But Hive have been quite clear. They've been transparent. They've been replacing the fleet. They're going to continue to replace the fleet and to grow their fleet with the new building or the new site they're putting together in Paraguay. So they've got what I call is a relatively big site there. It's going to be at least sort of like half their total hash rate in Paraguay. So they're going at this in the same sort of way that Bitfarms are doing their sort of like entry into Paraguay. They're going to have sort of like 7 or 8 exahash by the end of the year in Paraguay. So at the moment, it's looking opportunistic for miners to go down there with the cheap power. Obviously, the weather's a factor down there because it's not as cool as some of their other places. But these companies will have done the due diligence and looked into the weather, looked into the types of facilities they need to build down there to accommodate that. So I'm expecting to see in the next sort of 9 to 12 months that site develop and come online. So today they've increased the hash rate. It was 4.9 at the end of July, 5.5 at the end of August. That's a nice increase, 12% there. In terms of operational hash rate, so this is the average hash rate of the machines that are online during the month, that achieved 5, which is their highest ever. So again, reaching a new record there. It was 4.7 in July, so an increase of about 6%. In terms of power, they're utilizing at the moment about 142 megawatts. Fleet efficiency again for Hive is the same as, or close to very much the same as Riot's at 24.5. However, with Hive, what they've been doing is they've been doing some using different underclocking some of their old machines, their S92 machines, and getting more efficiency out of them. So they've been able to achieve, closer to a rate of 23 fleet efficiency for August, where it was 24.5 in July. Just on the way they're actually utilizing the machine itself. So, underclocking the machine and getting, effectively getting a better response from the machine than you would do if you were, using full power overclocking. And we've heard that come from Adam Sullivan at Core Scientific. They've got a part of their fleet's aging, and they've been doing some testing as well to try and optimize the mining conditions for some of these older machines. And underclocking seems to be a consistent way that some of these miners are looking at it. So positive news there from Hive. They're able to get more out of some of these older machines until they get replaced. In terms of HODL, Well, it looks like they've maintained the same amount of HODL that they had in July. So they've sold, or it looks, they haven't come out and said how many sold, but if they've got the same HODL as July, then effectively their Bitcoin production for August is what they've sold, so 112. And in terms of Bitcoin per exahash, 22.4, which is, that's the same sort of amount that Bitfarms came out with. And quite a few other miners are very, very close to that number as well. A good update. The final point to say is with regards to the HODL this month is 149 million. And for the same amount of Bitcoin last month, it was 164. That just highlights not only are they competing with difficulty in terms of production, they're competing with the energy cost and the Bitcoin price. So a lot of these miners are on spot prices for energy, so those can change on a monthly basis. We know the Bitcoin price can change because we've seen it go up and down with regularity. And just in that month, with the same hash rate, with the same HODL, their value of the HODL has dropped by $15 million, which is like 9%. So that's just a very quick indication of exactly, the impact of the Bitcoin price just in a 31-day period.
Yeah, it certainly is. We're fighting the battle on all fronts right now, Anthony, in the Bitcoin mining sector. So CleanSpark is another one showing some deltas month over month here, Anthony. I want to walk through the numbers here. Still significant production, up near 400 or 478 Bitcoin for the month. So a top contributor or performer, and putting essentially all of that into their HODL. Really going, I guess, all in, similar to Marathon or Riot on that Bitcoin balance sheet approach.
Yeah, no, again, we talk about the top two, but then if you look at the next two or three, CleanSpark are in that group there, and they're sort of like top five regularly month after month. So in terms of production in August, 478 in August, 494 in July. That's a reduction of about 3%. There's two parts to this. One is obviously the difficulty and the weather will impact on the production, we've already indicated there. But actually, from CleanSpark's point of view, they increased their hash rate. So they've added an extra 1.4 exahash to their production hash rate, and that's about 7%. So in month, they're nicely getting towards their target. They've still got to get another 10 exahash by the end of the year. But we've seen some of these other miners increase 5 exahash in a month. We've just seen IREN do 5.5 in the month of August. So we expect CleanSpark to do that. And I think CleanSpark have already said they're going to announce a big increase during the month of September. So watch out for that update coming through. I think they're aiming to try and get to something like 28 exahash. So that will be a significant size. They've got a lot of sites that they're trying to build up and get operational all at the same time. So with them, in case not just one site, but they've got they're doing some enhancements at a number of sites, and they've bought some sites. So when these become operational at once, you'll see these big jumps. And I think 28 is their target to get to. So keep your eyes peeled for that update there. In terms of power at the moment, 558 megawatts of power. And their fleet, so this tells you now how many miners they added. It went up from 160,900 to 163,648. So again, 2% increase in number of mining machines on there. But bear in mind, these mining machines will be more efficient mining machines, so they'll deliver more than the ones that are already on the system there. So fleet efficiency, we used to say every month CleanSpark's got the best fleet efficiency. No more. IREN's got the highest or the best fleet efficiency of 19. So CleanSpark are at 22.7. It did come down from 22.9, so it dropped down by a percentage. So it's going in the right direction. They are in second place. There's no one really that close to them. I've said to you 24, 25 is in top sort of like quartile, but 22.7 is good. IREN at 19, and I think 19, maybe even 18, I think it went down to with the extra exahash today. So, they're heading towards 17 by the end of September and 15 by the end of the year. But CleanSpark, their 10 exahash is all going to be S21. So we'll see that that sort of fleet efficiency come down significantly over this next 3.5 months. In terms of HODL, CleanSpark have just been constantly building up their hodl for the last sort of like 15 months now, and it's literally. I'm not going to say they sell none. They actually, I think 2.5 of the Bitcoin is part of directors' remuneration, but the rest of it is held in the hodl. So their hodl now is at 7,558. That's increased by 7%. That's got a value now heading towards 450 million. So it's 446 million today. Last month it was 458 million with less Bitcoin. So again, it tells you the impact of the Bitcoin price has on hodl. So the value of the hodl is 3% down, but there's actually 7% more Bitcoin in the hodl. So, think about that when you're doing your sort of like analysis and your due diligence going forward about what miners are hodling and the expectation of how price can impact it.
So Anthony, just to simplify that, so 7,500 Bitcoin in your hodl, for every $1,000 Bitcoin moves, they're basically swinging about $7.5 million US in terms of their balance sheet, hey?
Yeah, I mean, based on that, I mean, bear in mind that the Bitcoin price at the end of July was 64,000. It's 58, just under 59,000 for the end of August. So that $5,000 or just over $5,000 swing on every Bitcoin, that's the impact of how the valuation is affected. And when you've got 7,500 at 5,000, you're heading towards $40 million in terms of valuation difference. So it does impact, but I think from CleanSpark's perspective, they're not in this for the short term. They're in this for the longer term, and they see the Bitcoin price rally, as do Marathon, as do Riot. So, if Bitcoin gets to 150, 200,000, everyone will be looking at these companies that have gone through the hodl process and said, yeah, that was the right move to make. But history will tell us that there's always a challenge in the future that people don't realize until it's too late. And we saw that in 2022 when people were trying to hodl all the way through 2021 and didn't sell any Bitcoin. And then when the price came down, it came down so quickly that they were trying to sell and they were selling really low rates. And so it really impacted a number of miners. And, there's a few lessons learned. So I think CleanSpark have been in this game for a while now. They benefited from that 2022 position because they'd sold a lot of Bitcoin at the top. And so they were sort of like winning at both sides of it. And then they started to hodl, like I say, for last sort of 15, 16 months, they've started to ramp up the hodl, pretty much hodling most of their production. So they're in a strong position there. There's only 3 miners with a bigger hodl than CleanSpark. That's Marathon, Riot, and Hut. And they're sort of like fast catching Hut at the moment. So maybe in sort of like 4 or 5 months' time, they may be getting close to Hut's target because Hut at the moment aren't they aren't hodling all their production. They're maintaining that hodl, but they're not adding significant amounts month by month. So we've seen how much Riot's increased. Riot are over 10,000. CleanSpark are sort of like fast catching up towards Hut as well. And bear in mind, 18 months ago, Hut were on their own. They were out there without, higher than everybody. They're the biggest hodl. And so, it's maintaining that hodl and growing that hodl. That's gonna help them. But overall, a good update.
Yeah, most definitely. There's some high stakes bets on Bitcoin going on in the Bitcoin mining sector, Anthony. And I just checked my phone as you were talking there. It looks like we're now in the 56.5 range. So continuing to struggle to find its footing. I'll be interested to see what some of the technical analysis or technicians are saying here in terms of the bottom, but continuing to add pressure, not only on investments or proxies to Bitcoin, but the miners themselves and those cash flows, operational margins that we talk about, Anthony. So another great episode here, you guys. We'd be curious to hear your thoughts on these 3 companies in the video description section below, specifically if you're already holding shares. If you're still watching, you found this valuable, hit the like button, feel free to subscribe. Anthony and I will be back tomorrow to answer more of your questions and talk through more Bitcoin mining data. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.